On a quiet Saturday morning in Portland's suburbs, Michael, a devoted husband, tends to his garden, finding peace in the routine. But his world shatters when a nervous neighbor reveals a chilling video. Michael's wife, Laura, is secretly meeting a stranger in their home. Truth or betrayal? Michael's quest for answers pulls him into a web of secrets that threatens everything he holds dear. Michael Reed, a 40-year-old engineer with a steady hand and a knack for fixing things, was elbow-deep in his garden, coaxing life from the soil. The Portland sun hung low, casting a warm glow over the neat rows of marigolds he'd planted for Laura, his wife of 12 years. Every Saturday, this was his ritual, a quiet escape from blueprints and deadlines. He was trimming a stubborn bush when the crunch of footsteps on the gravel path broke his focus. It was Tim, the neighbor from 2 houses down, a wiry tech guy who always seemed to know everyone's business. Today, though, Tim wasn't his usual chatty self. His hands fidgeted, and he kept glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to jump out from the hedges. "Michael, we need to talk," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "It's important." Michael set down his shears, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What's up, Tim? You look like you've seen a ghost." Tim hesitated, then pulled out his phone. I didn't know how to approach this. It's about Laura." The mention of her name sent a jolt through Michael. Tim tapped his screen and held it out. "Just watch." The video was grainy but unmistakable. It showed their front porch, the one Michael had repainted last spring. Laura stood there, smiling, opening the door for a tall man Michael didn't recognize. The stranger stepped inside with a familiarity that made Michael's stomach twist. The timestamp showed yesterday, mid-afternoon, when Michael was at work. The clip ended, but Tim swiped to another. Same man, same porch, different day. Then another, and another. Michael's pulse quickened. "What the hell is this, Tim?" he demanded, his voice sharper than he intended. "I set up a camera," Tim admitted, shifting uncomfortably. "It's motion-activated for security. I saw this guy coming and going when you're not around. I thought you should know. You thought spying on my wife was okay." Michael's hands clenched into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. Tim wasn't the issue here. Not yet. "Who is he?" "I don't know," Tim said quickly, raising his hands. "I just saw him on the footage. Figured you deserved to know what's happening in your own house." Michael stared at the phone, the last frame frozen on the stranger's silhouette. 100 questions burned in his mind. Who was this guy? Why was Laura letting him in? Was she? No, he couldn't let himself go there. Not yet. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was already taking root. "Go home, Tim," Michael said, his voice cold. "And don't ever pull this again." He handed the phone back, his mind racing. Tim muttered an apology and scurried off, leaving Michael alone with the weight of what he'd seen. He stood in the garden for a long moment, staring at the house. Laura was inside, probably humming to herself while she prepped lunch, oblivious to the storm brewing in Michael's chest. He wanted to march in and demand answers, but something held him back. He needed to be sure, needed to know what he was dealing with before he confronted her. By the time he walked back to the house, his resolve had hardened. He wouldn't accuse her outright, not yet. But he'd watch, wait, and dig until he uncovered the truth. If Laura was hiding something, he'd find out. And if this stranger was a threat, Michael would handle it, one way or another. Michael Reed's heart pounded as he stepped into the house, the weight of Tim's video pressing on him like a stone. Laura was in the kitchen, chopping carrots with the steady rhythm she always had when preparing their Saturday lunch. The normalcy of it felt wrong, almost mocking after what he'd seen. He set Tim's phone on the counter, the screen dark but heavy with accusation. "Laura," he said, his voice low but firm, "we need to talk. Now." She paused mid-chop, her knife hovering over the cutting board. "Michael, what's wrong?" Her tone was light, but he caught the flicker of unease in her movements as she set the knife down. He tapped the phone, waking the screen to show the frozen image of her opening the door for the stranger. "Explain this," he said, sliding it toward her. "Who's this guy, Laura? Why is he in our house when I'm at work?" Laura's eyes locked onto the video. She played it, her hand steady but her breath catching as the stranger stepped inside their home. The clip looped, showing the same scene from different days. Always her, always him, always when Michael wasn't there. She pushed the phone back, her jaw tight. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice sharp with indignation. "Tim," Michael said, crossing his arms. He's been watching our house. Says he was concerned. But that's not the point. Who is this man, Laura? Her gaze darted away, just for a second, but it was enough to spike Michael's pulse. It's not what you think, she said, her words measured. You have to trust me, Michael. Please. Trust you. He stepped closer, his voice rising despite his effort to stay calm. You're letting some guy I've never met into our home, and you can't even tell me who he is? How am I supposed to trust that? Laura's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't back down. I'm not cheating on you, if that's what you're thinking. I never do that. But I can't explain this right now. Not yet. Not yet. Michael's laugh was bitter, cutting through the quiet kitchen. Laura, this isn't some game. This could tear us apart. You're asking me to just what? Ignore it? Pretend I didn't see a stranger walking into our house like he belongs here? She crossed her arms, mirroring his stance. I'm asking you to believe in me. In us. I'll tell you everything when the time's right. I promise. Michael stared at her, searching for the woman he'd married. The one who'd always been open, who'd laughed with him over late-night coffee and planned their future together. But now, her secrecy felt like a wall between them. He wanted to believe her, wanted to cling to the trust they'd built over 12 years. But the video kept replaying in his mind. That stranger's casual stride. Laura's welcoming smile. Fine, he said finally, his voice cold. Keep your secrets, but I'm not sitting around waiting for answers. He grabbed his keys from the counter and headed for the door. Michael, wait, Laura started, but he was already out, the door clicking shut behind him. The cool Portland air did little to calm the storm in his chest. He climbed into his truck, parked it a block away, and sat there, eyes fixed on their house. The idea of spying on his own wife twisted his gut, but so did the thought of being played for a fool. If Laura wouldn't talk, he'd find out for himself. He'd watch the house tomorrow, when he was supposed to be at work. If that stranger showed up again, Michael would be ready. The next morning, he called in sick, his voice steady as he lied to his boss about a stomach bug. By 9 a.m., he was back in his truck, parked on a quiet side street with a clear view of their front porch. He sipped coffee from a thermos, his eyes never leaving the house. Laura moved about her routine, watering the garden, checking the mailbox, oblivious to his presence. The normalcy of it gnawed at him. How could she act so calm, knowing what he'd seen? Around 11 a.m., a beat-up sedan rolled up. Michael's grip tightened on the steering wheel. It was him, the man from the video. Tall, with a tense posture, he carried a small duffel bag slung over one shoulder. He rang the doorbell, and Laura appeared almost instantly, stepping aside to let him in. No hesitation, no unease, just that same familiar ease Michael had seen on the footage. His stomach churned. Who was this guy, and why did Laura trust him so completely? He waited, his mind racing with possibilities. An affair? A friend she'd never mentioned? Every scenario felt like a betrayal. After 40 minutes, the man emerged, glancing around before hurrying to his car and driving off. Michael jotted down the license plate number, his hands shaking. He could run it through a friend at the DMV, maybe get a name. But first, he needed to hear it from Laura. He drove back, pulling into the driveway, just as Laura stepped outside to collect the mail. She froze when she saw him, her eyes narrowing. Michael, why aren't you at work? I took the day off, he said, stepping out of the truck. Saw your friend again. Same guy, same routine. Care to tell me who he is now, or are we still playing the trust game? Laura's shoulders slumped, but her voice stayed firm. I told you, it's not what you think. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Harder? Michael's voice cracked with frustration. Laura, I'm trying to save us. You're the one shutting me out. Who is he? She hesitated, her eyes searching his. For a moment, he thought she'd finally open up. But then she straightened, her resolve hardening. I need you to trust me, Michael. I'll explain soon. I swear. He shook his head, the weight of her words crushing any hope of clarity. I can't do this, Laura. Not like this. He turned back to his truck, his mind made up. If she wouldn't talk, he'd find answers another way. The license plate number burned in his pocket. By tomorrow, he'd know who this stranger was and why Laura was protecting him. Michael Reed's truck idled on a quiet Portland side street, the engine's low hum barely masking the storm in his chest. The license plate number from the stranger's sedan was scrawled on a scrap of paper in his pocket, but he wasn't ready to call his friend at the DMV yet. He needed to hear it from Laura first. One last chance for her to come clean. The morning after his stakeout, he returned home earlier than usual, his resolve steeled. Laura was in the driveway, tossing a bag of leaves into the compost bin, her movements deliberate but tense, as if she sensed the confrontation coming. "Laura," Michael called, stepping out of the truck. She turned, her hands pausing mid-task. "We're done with games. I saw him again yesterday. Same guy, same car. I got his plate number. I can find out who he is, but I want it from you. Right now." Laura's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked like she might bolt. But then she straightened, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Okay, Michael," she said, her voice steady but heavy. "Come inside. I'll tell you." They sat at the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Laura clasped her hands, her knuckles whitening. "His name is Nick," she began, her eyes fixed on the table. "He's my brother." Michael's breath caught. "Your brother?" The word felt foreign, like it didn't belong in their 12 years of marriage. "You never mentioned a brother, Laura?" "Not once." "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't want you to know about him. Not because I don't trust you, but because I was ashamed. Nick's been in prison for 7 years. For fraud. He got out 2 months ago, and I've been helping him get back on his feet." Michael leaned back, his mind racing. Fraud? Prison? The pieces didn't fit the Laura he knew, the woman who planned charity drives and volunteered at the local shelter. "Why hide this?" he demanded. "Why let him sneak into our house like some secret?" "You made me think." He stopped, the word affair too raw to say aloud. Laura's eyes met his, pleading. "I didn't want you to judge him. Or me. Nick made mistakes, but he's trying to change. He's got no one else, Michael. I'm his only family. I thought if I told you, you'd want him gone, and I couldn't do that to him." Michael's hands clenched into fists. "So, you chose him over me? Over our marriage? You let me think the worst because you didn't trust me to handle it." "That's not it," she said quickly, reaching for his hand. He pulled away. "I was going to tell you, I swear. But Nick's paranoid. He thinks someone's watching him, someone from his past. He didn't want anyone knowing he was here, not even you." "Someone's watching him?" Michael's voice sharpened. "Who? And why's he bringing that into our home?" Laura hesitated, her gaze dropping. "I don't know the details. He won't tell me everything. Just that he got mixed up with some bad people before prison. He says he's out of it now, but he's still scared." Michael stood, pacing the kitchen to keep his anger in check. "Scared? Laura, this isn't just about him. If he's in trouble, that trouble's in our house now. You should have told me the second he showed up." "I know," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I thought I could handle it, keep you out of it. But I see now I was wrong." Her apology felt genuine, but it didn't erase the sting of her secrecy. Michael stopped pacing, his mind whirling. A brother in prison, dangerous people, and Laura, caught in the middle, choosing to protect Nick over their marriage. He wanted to believe her, but the gaps in her story gnawed at him. Why was Nick so paranoid? Who was he running from? "I need to talk to him," Michael said, his tone final. "If he's your brother, fine. But I'm not letting some ex-con drag us into his mess without knowing exactly what's going on." Laura nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "I'll call him. He'll come over tomorrow. You can ask him anything." That night, Michael barely slept, his thoughts tangled in doubt. Laura's explanation made sense, but it didn't explain Nick's nervous glances or the duffel bag he carried like it held his life secrets. By morning, Michael was ready. He found Nick's number in Laura's phone while she showered. A breach of trust he hated, but he was past playing fair. He dialed from a gas station payphone, his heart pounding. "Hello." The voice on the other end was deep, cautious, like it was expecting trouble. "This is Michael, Laura's husband," he said, keeping his tone steady. "We need to talk about why you're sneaking into my house." A long pause followed. "She told you," Nick said finally, his voice softening. "Look, man, I didn't want to cause problems. Laura's just trying to help me." "Help you with what?" Michael pressed. "She says you're out of prison, but you're acting like you're still on the run." "Who's after you?" Nick sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. "It's complicated. I got into some bad deals before I went away. People who don't forget debts. I'm trying to stay low, start over. Laura's the only one who believes I can." "Debts?" Michael's grip tightened on the receiver. "What kind of debts? And why's my wife caught up in this?" "She's not," Nick said quickly. "I swear, I'm keeping her out of it. I just needed a place to crash sometimes, figure things out. I'll talk to you, okay? Face to face. I don't want trouble with you or her." "Tomorrow," Michael said. "You come to the house. No more sneaking around." "Deal," Nick replied, and the line went dead. Michael hung up, his mind buzzing. Nick sounded sincere, but sincerity didn't mean safety. If Nick was tangled with dangerous people, their home wasn't just a refuge. It was a target. He drove back, the license plate number still in his pocket. He'd hold off on the DMV check, give Nick a chance to explain. But if Nick's story didn't add up, Michael would dig deeper, no matter what it cost. Michael Reed sat in his truck outside their Portland home, the morning sun barely cutting through the fog. His conversation with Nick yesterday had left him uneasy. Nick's vague talk of bad deals and debts felt like half-truths, and the duffel bag he carried nagged at Michael's mind. Today, Nick was coming to the house to explain himself, face-to-face, as Michael had demanded. Laura had texted Nick to set it up, her fingers hesitant on her phone, but she'd agreed it was time. Michael wasn't sure what to expect, but he was done with secrets. At noon, a familiar beat-up sedan pulled into the driveway. Nick stepped out, his posture stiff, the duffel bag slung over his shoulder again. Michael watched from the porch, his arms crossed, as Nick approached. Laura opened the door before Nick could knock, her voice low but urgent. "Nick, just tell him everything. No more hiding." They sat at the kitchen table, the air thick with tension. Nick set the duffel bag on the floor, its weight thudding against the tiles. Michael leaned forward, his eyes locked on Nick. "Start talking," he said. "Who's after you? And why's my wife caught in the middle?" Nick rubbed his hands together, his knuckles scarred from years Michael could only guess at. "I owe you the truth," he said, his voice low but steady. "Before prison, I ran with a crew in Seattle. We pulled off a big scam, fake investments, millions. I was the tech guy, cooking the books. When we got caught, I took the fall alone. 7 years for fraud. The others walked free." Michael's jaw tightened. "And now they want something from you. What?" Nick glanced at Laura, who nodded for him to continue. "Money," he said. "I hid my cut before the arrest. $500,000, stashed where no one could find it. They think I've got it, and they want it back. They've been tracking me since I got out." Laura's hand flew to her mouth. "Nick, you never told me it was that much, or that they're still after you." "I didn't want to scare you," Nick said, his voice softening. "You were helping me, giving me a place to crash. I thought I could handle it, lay low until they gave up." "Handle it?" Michael's voice rose, his patience fraying. "You brought this to our doorstep. Our home, Nick. If these people are as dangerous as you say, we're all at risk now." Nick leaned back, his hands raised in defense. "I know I screwed up. I'm trying to fix it. I've been moving the money bit by bit to a safe account. Once it's clean, I'm gone. I swear." Michael's eyes narrowed. "That bag," he said, pointing to the duffel. "What's in it?" Nick hesitated, then unzipped it, revealing stacks of cash bound in rubber bands. "This is the last of it," he said. "I was going to move it tomorrow. After that, I'm out of your lives." Laura stood, her voice shaking. "Nick, you can't keep doing this. You're putting us all in danger. You should have gone to the police." "And say what?" Nick snapped, then caught himself. "Laura, they'd lock me up again. I'm trying to do this right, start over. I just need a little more time." Michael stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "No, you're done dragging us into this. You go to the police, Nick, or I will. Today." Nick's eyes darted between Michael and Laura, calculating. "Okay," he said finally. "But if I turn myself in, they'll come for me and lock up. These guys have reach. I need a plan first." Michael didn't trust Nick's promises, but he saw the fear in his eyes. Real fear, not just guilt. "Then we make a plan," Michael said. "But you don't call the shots. We're doing this my way." Laura touched Michael's arm, her voice soft but firm. "He's my brother, Michael. I know he's messed up, but he's trying. Let's help him end this safely." Michael looked at her, the sting of her secrecy still fresh. But her plea stirred something in him. The trust they'd built over years, frayed but not broken. "Fine," he said, "but no more lies. From either of you." That afternoon, Michael drove to a coffee shop to meet a friend from his engineering firm, a former cop named Dave who still had contacts in the Portland PD. Over black coffee, Michael laid out the situation. Nick's past, the money, the threats. Dave listened, his fingers tapping the table. "Sounds like Nick's in deep with some bad players," he said. "You don't want this blowing back on you, or Laura. I can get you a name in the department, someone who handles organized crime. They'll want Nick to cooperate. Maybe we're a wire." Michael nodded, jotting down the contact. "What about the money? If Nick turns it over, will that keep him safe?" "Maybe," Dave said. If he's up front and the cops can use it to nab these guys, he might get a deal. But he's got to move fast. People like this don't wait. Back home, Michael found Laura and Nick waiting. He laid out Dave's advice. Contact the police, turn over the money, and offer to help catch the crew. Nick balked, his hands gripping the duffel bag. You don't get it, he said. These guys don't just want the cash. They want me gone. If I talk, I'm a dead man. Then you're dead either way, Michael said, his voice hard. You brought this to our house, Nick. You don't get to decide what happens next. We're calling the cops tomorrow morning. You either work with them or you're on your own. Laura's eyes widened, but she didn't argue. Nick stared at the table, his shoulders slumping. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it, but you have to promise me Laura stays out of it. They can't know she's involved. Michael nodded, though his gut told him it wouldn't be that simple. As Nick left, promising to return at dawn, Michael turned to Laura. This ends tomorrow, he said. But if there's anything else you're not telling me, now's the time. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. There's nothing else. I just want this over. That night, Michael lay awake, the duffel bag's image burned into his mind. $500,000 sitting in their kitchen, a magnet for trouble. He didn't trust Nick to follow through, and Laura's loyalty to her brother still stung. But for the first time, they were facing this together. Tomorrow, they'd call the police. If Nick's crew was as dangerous as he claimed, Michael would make sure his family stayed safe, no matter what it took. Michael Reed's resolve was ironclad as he stood in the driveway of their Portland home, the morning air sharp with the promise of rain. The duffel bag of cash Nick had revealed yesterday sat heavy in his mind, a ticking bomb that could draw his old crew straight to their doorstep. Laura had agreed to involve the police, her loyalty to her brother Nick now tempered by the reality of the danger he'd brought. Today, they'd meet Detective Karen Holt, the contact Michael's friend Dave had recommended, to set a plan in motion. Nick had promised to show up at 8 a.m., but as the minutes ticked past, Michael's unease grew. Laura stood beside him, her arms crossed, scanning the street. He'll come, she said, her voice firm but strained. He knows this is his only shot. Michael nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. Nick's fear of his old crew and his reluctance to turn himself in made him unpredictable. At 8:15, the familiar beat-up sedan rolled into the driveway. Nick stepped out, his duffel bag absent this time, his steps quick and purposeful. Sorry I'm late, he said, avoiding Michael's gaze. Had to make sure I wasn't followed. Followed? Michael's voice was sharp. You said you handle this, Nick. No more excuses. We're meeting the police in an hour. Nick nodded, his hands shoved in his pockets. I'm in. Whatever it takes to keep Laura safe. They drove to a diner across town, where Detective Holt waited in a corner booth, her notebook already open. She was direct, her questions cutting through Nick's hesitations. You've got $500,000 in stolen money, she said, tapping her pen. And a crew who wants it, and you gone. If you want protection, you need to give us everything. Names, dates, locations. You'll wear a wire to set up a meet with these guys. Nick's jaw tightened, but he nodded. I'll do it, but you have to guarantee Laura and Michael stay out of this. Holt's eyes flicked to Michael. They're out as long as you cooperate. Where's the money now? Hidden, Nick said. I'll hand it over once we've got a deal. Michael leaned forward, his patience thin. No games, Nick. You brought this to our house. You hand over the cash today, or I walk you to the station myself. Laura touched his arm, her voice low. He's doing it, Michael. Let's just get through this. Holt outlined the plan. Nick would contact his old crew, claiming he had the money and wanted to settle. The police would monitor the meet, ready to arrest the crew when they showed. We've dealt with these types before, Holt said. They're sloppy when they think they've won. But Nick, if you try to run, the deal's off. Nick agreed, and by noon, he'd made the call. The crew wanted to meet that night at an abandoned lot near the river, a place Michael knew from his engineering projects, isolated, perfect for a trap. Holt's team prepped Nick with a wire, their van parked a block away to avoid suspicion. Michael and Laura were told to stay home, but Michael insisted on being nearby, unable to sit idle while their lives hung in the balance. As dusk fell, Michael parked his truck a safe distance from the lot, Laura beside him, her hands clasped tightly. This has to work, she whispered. For Nick. For us. Michael squeezed her hand, the first real connection they'd shared in days. It will. And when it's over, we're done with secrets. The meet unfolded faster than Michael expected. Through binoculars, he saw Nick standing in the lot, a duffel bag, now filled with marked bills from the police, at his feet. Two men approached, their voices muffled but aggressive, demanding the cash. Nick played his part, handing over the bag, but as one of the men reached for it, police swarmed from the shadows, shouting orders. The crew tried to bolt, but Holt's team was faster, cuffing them within minutes. Nick stood frozen, hands raised, until an officer pulled him aside. Michael exhaled, his grip on the binoculars loosening. "It's over," he said, turning to Laura. Her eyes glistened, relief mixing with exhaustion. Back home, Holt called with an update. The crew was in custody, charged with extortion and conspiracy, thanks to Nick's wire. Nick had turned over the money and agreed to testify, earning a reduced sentence, likely a year, with parole. "He's lucky," Holt said, "and you two are clear. But I'd keep your neighbor Tim in check. His security cameras caused enough trouble." Michael hadn't forgotten Tim's invasion of their privacy. The next morning, he marched to Tim's house, Laura at his side. When Tim opened the door, Michael didn't mince words. "Your camera caught my wife's brother, not a lover. He's ex-con, yeah, but what you did was illegal. The police know, and they've got your footage. Cross that line again, and you're in cuffs." Tim stammered an apology, his confidence gone. "I was just trying to help." "Help yourself to some boundaries," Laura snapped, her voice cutting. They left him standing there, his door half open, the lessons sinking in. That evening, Michael and Laura sat in their backyard, the weight of the past week lifting. Nick had called from the station, thanking them and promising to make things right after his sentence. For the first time, Michael believed him. But the ordeal had left scars, Laura's secrecy, his own doubts. They needed a fresh start. "I've been looking at places in Colorado," Michael said, breaking the silence. "Small town, open land. No neighbors with cameras. Just us." Laura turned to him, her hand finding his. "I'd like that. No more hiding. Just you and me." Michael nodded, the trust between them fragile, but mending. They'd sell the house, leave Portland's shadows behind, and build a life where secrets had no place. As the stars emerged above, Michael felt a quiet resolve. They'd faced danger together and come out stronger. Now, they'd write their next chapter on their terms.